And welcome into another episode of Dan Tony Sports. My name is Dan Snyder. This is the part where I usually introduce my cast of misfits that usually join me. But tonight, we are down to me and Dan O'Shea. Now, when it's me and Dan Beebe and Dan O'Shea, we're the three Dan band. But since there's just two of us tonight, what do you say we go by the name the Duet of Dan, or Dan Duet, or something like that?
Works for me.
All right. Which one do you like better?
Let's go Dan Duet.
Dan Duet it is. How you doing tonight, O'Shea?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good as well. Actually, I'm doing fan-fucking-tastic. Do you know why that is?
Why is that, Dan?
Because I am watching meaningful football. College football's back! And more than just those games we saw on Saturday. We'll touch on those in just a couple of minutes. But before we do have something pretty pressing that we need to discuss. This is the point of the season when we, as a podcast, we make our weekly picks. All right, and I know the games have started, but we're going to go ahead and do them now. Dan Beebe and Tony have already messaged us their picks, and we're going to go based on the honor system, seeing as how two of the games have already started. You down for that, O'Shea?
I am down. And I'll be honest, I haven't even looked at the scores of the games that have started yet, so I'm very honorable.
Okay. So, we will start with the game that I think is closest to my heart. That would be Albany at Central Michigan. And we're doing just straight up. We're not doing with the spread, because that's annoying. But it is what it is. So, Dan Beebe and Tony have both picked Central Michigan to defeat Albany, and I think they're clearly wrong. But, Dan O'Shea, who do you have, Central Michigan or Albany?
I mean, do we really have a choice here? It's got to be Albany. We are Great Danes, and we are going to rep the Great Danes.
Abso-fucking-lutely. Albany it is for me as well. All right, now that the obvious pick is out of the way, the next game that we have is a game that's going on right now, the one that I'm actually watching. That is Cincinnati at UCLA. Both Dan Beebe and Tony have picked Cincinnati. What do you think, Dan O'Shea?
I am also leaning Cincinnati. It feels like UCLA hasn't really been impressive of late. Don't have a whole lot of confidence, so I want them to prove it to me before I start picking them in anything for the time being.
That's exactly how I feel. They're not lighting the world up anytime soon. Even when they had, a quote-unquote good quarterback in Josh Rosen, they still were struggling against average teams.
Right.
They just were not that good. And I think Cincinnati is a good team. I did choose Cincinnati in the Sports Jungle pick'em. Or I'm sorry, not pick'em. You know that what's it called? Beat the Streak or whatever it's called that ESPN does, where they let you pick a game, and if you get it right, you keep going and you can win prizes. All right, so we're doing something like that. Some of us are in the Sports Jungle, which if you are listening and you're not part of the Sports Jungle, it is like the best group on Facebook to join if you like sports and or fuckery. So I highly recommend looking for Sports Jungle and joining if you think you can hang with the jungle. But I picked, for my pick, Cincinnati to beat UCLA. I'm not changing it for this little competition among friends that we're doing. I'm sticking with Cincinnati as my pick as well. So that moves us now to Game 3. Game 3 being Florida International at Tulane. Here we have our first split between Dan Beebe and Tony. Dan picked Florida International, and Tony picked Tulane. This is a good game between two Group of 5 teams. Florida International is starting to make a name for themselves, and Tulane, they're streaky. They have seasons where they are really good and then seasons where they are pretty bad. What are you thinking? Are you thinking Tulane or FIU here, Dan O'Shea?
Initially, I was leaning Tulane, but I think I'm actually going to go ahead and pick FIU for this one. I think quarterback is gonna play a main role here. It's gonna be close, and even the spread says that. I think last time I saw it, it was Tulane was -2. So obviously, Vegas is well. Actually, who's at home? At Tulane.
Yeah, it's at Tulane.
Tulane is -2, which is, what's the advantage that they normally give home teams? -2 or -3?
For college, it's like 6.5.
Oh, really? That high? Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess they might be slightly leaning FIU as well, and then just giving that slight home advantage back to Tulane. I think James Morgan's decent, and I think their offense looks like it could be pretty good this season. They do have a rebuilt O-line, so Tulane could attack that, but I think ultimately FIU is going to pull it out.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really tough game to pick. I'm leaning the other way. I think FIU is trending for a reason, so I'm going with FIU. And you said Tulane, right?
I said FIU.
You said FIU as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I said Tulane. Why did I just confuse myself? I'm going Tulane. All right. So the next game is one of my favorite games of the week to watch, and I'm going to be pretty pissed because I'm going to fall asleep probably within like the first 15 minutes of the game. And that is the BYU-Utah game. I feel like we should all have a consensus here, but I don't want to speak for you. Who do you think is going to win? BYU
Utah.
Or you? Okay,
Utah, 100%.
I think that's fairly obvious. Utah is the
Utah's
pick for all
ranked
of us.
14th. What's BYU? Do we know?
They're unranked.
Okay, I knew they were outside the top 25. I didn't know if they had a approximate ranking outside of that. Yeah, I think when we were doing our analysis, we all thought Utah was going to be a force this season. I don't think we thought the same of BYU. So yeah, I think Utah's gonna have this handily. Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be like a complete dismantling, but I would pretty easily say that it's gonna be a 2-touchdown, 3-touchdown game in favor of Utah. That's how confident I am.
BYU is one of those teams where they can either let shit get out of control really fast, or they can make it a game. I could see this being a 41-10 game. I could see it being a 31-28 game. BYU is just one of those teams that you just don't know what you're going to get when the game starts. There was a game 2 years ago where you had no idea what was going to happen with BYU. They played LSU, and they didn't even cross midfield, and then the next week they scored like 52 points. So like that's what you get with a BYU game. So I'm sure Utah's going to win. They're the better team. I think Utah is potentially one of the 5 best teams in the country. But I think BYU has the ability to keep it close. So, I don't like how we're all basically agreeing so far. So I feel like the next pick I'm just going to make to spite everyone. The next game...
That sounds typical of you.
The next game is UMass at Rutgers. UMass, the new kids on the block in the FBS. Rutgers, they just fucking suck. They both, Dan Beebe and Tony, both picked Rutgers. What are you thinking here?
This one was tough for me because I never like to pick Rutgers. They have gone for about a full year now, I think, without a win. But that being said, UMass is completely, new and unproven on this stage.
Yeah, I mean, UMass, they've showed signs of promise. They were easily, back when they were in I still want to call it 1AA, but back when they were in FCS, they were easily one of the best FCS programs for quite a while. They finally get brought up to Division 1A/FBS, and I mean, they've had their problems. They really have, but I feel like they are on the right track. They are a team that really is trending in the right direction as well. I mean, your first couple of years, you're gonna be expected to suck, right? No one expects you, join the big boys and immediately have a positive impact. Unless I just don't think enough of people and I'm wrong because I'm an asshole. But I think UMass is at least in the realm of discussion of being as good as Rutgers. So did you make a pick?
I didn't, but I'm gonna try and hold in my lunch here, my dinner, and I'm gonna go with Rutgers.
Yes. This is the game that I was so sure I was gonna be different than everyone else because I am picking UMass to beat Rutgers.
I mean, if they can beat anybody, it's Rutgers
or Kansas.
Or Kansas, yes, of course, or Kansas.
Or Kansas. All right.